There is a curious thing about human suffering. The more we try to escape it, the more it follows us. Like a shadow cast by the light of our own consciousness, the pain of the past clings to us not because it wishes to destroy us, but because it has not yet been heard. Yet most people spend their entire lives running from these memories, hoping that time will somehow erase them, that distraction will blur their edges, that success, relationships, or busyness will bury them so deep they cease to exist. But memories do not die from neglect. They remain, quietly waiting, gathering weight, until eventually they demand to be faced. The truth is simple, though uncomfortable. You cannot heal what you refuse to face. There is no path forward that does not first require a turning back. And so, if you wish to heal the most painful memories of your past, you must first stop running. You must turn toward what hurts you, not away from it. This act alone, simple yet courageous, becomes the doorway to healing. It is natural to fear this confrontation. Painful memories often carry with them not just the echo of old wounds, but the fear that revisiting them will open what has barely been survived. But this is an illusion. In reality, these memories hold no power to harm you, unless you continue to resist them. Avoidance gives them strength. Denial feeds their haunting presence. But when you turn around and face them, something remarkable happens. Their power begins to dissolve. Consider for a moment what happens in a dream when you are being chased. The faster you run, the more relentless the pursuer becomes. But should you dare to stop and face what is chasing you, the dream changes. The monster loses its teeth. Sometimes it even transforms into something benign, even helpful. This is not mere fantasy. It is a reflection of how the psyche works. The things we avoid become exaggerated, monstrous in our minds, but in reality they are fragments of ourselves, lost, wounded parts, crying out for recognition. When you turn toward your painful memories, you are not inviting suffering into your life. You are meeting the parts of yourself that got left behind in those moments of pain. You are allowing yourself to retrieve pieces of your soul that splintered off in the face of trauma, shame, or heartbreak. This is the real work of healing. Not to forget, not to erase, but to reclaim. There is a particular kind of honesty required here. You must be willing to look with clear eyes at what happened, to acknowledge the hurt without embellishment, without minimizing, without flinching. This does not mean wallowing in self-pity or becoming trapped in victimhood. Quite the opposite. It means honoring your own experience with the respect it deserves. It means allowing yourself to say, yes, this happened. Yes, it hurt me. And now I am ready to face it. In doing so, you take back what has been held hostage in the past, your energy, your attention, your emotional freedom. The more you avoid these memories, the more they dictate your present life in subtle, unconscious ways. But when you face them directly, you transform your relationship with them. They cease to be chains that bind you, and instead become lessons, even allies in your growth. This turning toward pain is not a one-time event, it is a practice. Each time you choose to face what you once avoided, you deepen your healing. You become more whole. You begin to realize that the fear of pain was always greater than the pain itself. The wound feared recognition, not because it would hurt more, but because recognition is what dissolves its power. Once seen, once embraced, its grip loosens. There is no healing without courage, but courage is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to move through fear toward truth. And the truth is, your painful memories are not your enemy. They are the buried roots of your future strength. They are the raw material from which your wisdom, your compassion, your depth are forged. So I tell you, stop running. Stop pretending that these shadows are not yours. turn around, face what hurts. You will discover that what once seemed unbearable was only waiting for your acceptance. And in that acceptance, the first step to healing is always the same. You must dare to face yourself. It is a strange thing, how we imagine our suffering to be, without reason. We speak of the wounds of the past as if they are meaningless accidents, senseless misfortunes dropped upon us by a chaotic world. But this belief is what keeps the wound open. The truth is far deeper, far more unsettling, but also liberating. Every wound carries with it a hidden meaning, a message sent from the depths of your unconscious, waiting to be understood. You see, the psyche is not concerned with the stories we tell ourselves for comfort. It deals in symbols, in images, in the language of dreams and archetypes. When something painful happens to you, especially in childhood or in moments of emotional vulnerability, it does not simply pass through you and disappear. If it remains unresolved, if it is too overwhelming for the conscious mind to process, it is stored away in the unconscious, preserved in symbolic form. It waits there, not as a passive memory, but as an active force, quietly influencing your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviors. But why would the psyche do this? Why would it preserve pain? Because the psyche seeks wholeness. What was once too much to bear becomes material for growth, but only when you are ready to face it. The wound becomes a vessel for a forgotten truth about yourself. Hidden within the pain is a piece of your authentic self that was lost, denied, or abandoned in that moment. The wound remembers, and so it calls to you, again and again, through patterns, through triggers, through the quiet ache that never fully goes away. To heal, you must become curious about your suffering. You must ask not, why did this happen to me, but rather, what is this trying to teach me? This shift in perspective is not about blaming yourself, nor is it about justifying the wrongs done to you. It is about reclaiming the narrative from a place of unconscious victimhood to conscious participation in your own healing. Imagine for a moment that your most painful memory is like a letter you have refused to open. The envelope is worn, the ink smudged, but the message inside is as urgent as ever. Until you read it, you cannot understand why certain patterns repeat in your life, why certain emotions arise without warning, why some parts of you feel foreign or fragmented. The act of opening this letter, of reading what it has to say, is the act of bringing unconscious content into the light of consciousness. It is not an easy task. Often these messages are disguised in layers of shame, fear, and grief. They require patience, compassion, and a willingness to sit with discomfort. But in doing so, you begin to see that your suffering is not senseless. It carries information about your needs, your boundaries, your values, your deepest longings. For example, a memory of abandonment may reveal a deep-seated belief that you are unworthy of love. This belief, though born of a painful experience, becomes an unconscious script influencing your relationships. But when you bring this into awareness, when you understand the origin of this wound, you create the possibility of change. You are no longer bound to act out the same story. You can choose a different response. This is the transformative power of meaning. When you understand what your suffering is trying to tell you, it loses its grip. The wound no longer festers in silence. It becomes a source of insight, even wisdom. In this way, your greatest pain can become your greatest teacher. But you must be willing to listen. Listening does not mean intellectualizing the pain, analyzing it from a safe emotional distance. It means allowing yourself to feel it fully, to witness it without judgment, and to ask, what is this asking of me? Often, the answer is simple yet profound: to be seen, to be accepted, to be integrated into the wholeness of who you are. The memories you fear hold the keys to parts of yourself you have forgotten. They are not obstacles on your path, they are the path. To turn away from them is to remain divided within yourself. To face them is to move toward wholeness. This is not a journey of days or weeks. It is the work of a lifetime. But every moment of awareness, every act of conscious reflection brings you closer to healing. The wound remains a wound until its message is received. Once heard, it transforms. There is no deeper relief than realizing that your suffering was never in vain. That beneath the pain was always a hidden meaning, a fragment of your true self waiting to return home. When you understand the meaning behind your wounds, you begin to heal not just the memory, but your entire being. There is a profound mistake many people make when trying to heal the pain of their past. They believe that if they can think their way through it, if they can analyze it enough, if they can explain it logically, the pain will somehow disappear. But this is a false path. Pain does not live in the intellect. It lives in the body, in the heart, in the very fibers of your being. And what lives in the body cannot be healed by thought alone. You must feel what you have been avoiding in order to finally be free. This is not an invitation to drown in suffering, nor is it a call to indulge in endless emotional turmoil. It is an invitation to allow the natural process of emotional digestion to take place. Feelings that are denied, suppressed, or avoided do not vanish. They sink deeper, becoming tension in the muscles, tightness in the chest, a lump in the throat, an unexplained heaviness in the soul. Over time, they manifest as anxiety, depression, even physical illness. What we refuse to feel demands to be felt through other means. Think of a wound that has never been cleaned, covered hastily, ignored, yet still festering beneath the surface. It cannot heal until it is opened, cleaned, allowed to breathe. Emotional wounds are no different. The protective barriers we build, numbness, distraction, denial, may shield us temporarily, but they also prevent true healing. To heal, the wound must be felt. This process can be frightening. Old emotions often feel larger than life, as if they might overwhelm us completely. That is because they have been left untouched for so long. But emotions, when given space to be felt, are like waves. They rise, they crest, they pass. No emotion, however intense, is eternal. What makes them linger is our resistance. When you dare to feel what you have spent years avoiding, you allow the energy of that emotion to move. And movement is life. A stuck emotion is a stuck life. But when you give yourself permission to feel grief, anger, shame, fear, without judgment, without analysis, you begin to liberate yourself from their unconscious grip. It is important to understand that this is not an intellectual exercise. You cannot think your way into healing. You must create a safe space within yourself to feel fully and honestly. This may mean sitting in silence, noticing where the emotion lives in your body, allowing tears to come, allowing your breath to deepen. It may mean expressing what was once unspeakable, giving voice to what was silenced. This is not weakness. This is courage in its truest form. Many are afraid that if they open the door to these old feelings, they will be consumed. But the opposite is true. The feelings you fear have already been consuming you, quietly dictating your choices, your relationships, your self-picture. By facing them consciously, you take back the power they have held. You become the one who feels, not the one who is ruled by hidden feelings. There is a certain humility required in this process. You must be willing to admit that you cannot bypass your own humanity, that pain, though uncomfortable, is a natural part of life, and that healing requires your full participation. When you stop trying to outthink your pain, and instead allow yourself to feel it, you align with the natural rhythms of the psyche. You allow the wound to breathe, to release, to heal. This is not about dramatizing your suffering or clinging to it as an identity. It is about allowing the emotional energy to complete its cycle. Once felt, the charge of the emotion diminishes. What was once a heavy burden becomes a lighter presence, a part of your history that no longer dictates your present. The paradox is this: by feeling the pain, you lessen its hold. By avoiding it, you keep it alive. Liberation comes not through avoidance but through surrender. Not a passive surrender, but an active, conscious willingness to feel. You do not have to do this all at once. Healing is not a race. Each moment of honest feeling, each breath taken in the midst of discomfort, is a step toward freedom. Over time, you will notice a shift. The memories that once triggered overwhelming pain will soften. They will lose their sharp edges. They will become part of your story, but no longer the author of your present life. There is no greater act of self-love than to finally allow yourself to feel what you once believed you could not survive. In feeling, you heal. In healing, you reclaim yourself. True freedom begins the moment you choose to feel what you have feared the most. There is a part of you, hidden beneath layers of defense, that still carries the weight of every wound you've ever suffered. This part is not distant or abstract. It is the younger version of yourself, the one who was there when the pain first occurred. Often, we treat this past self harshly. We judge them for not being stronger, for not knowing better, for feeling too much, or for reacting in ways we now disapprove of. But healing cannot happen through judgment. Healing happens through compassion. When you look back at your most painful memories, you are not simply recalling events. You are encountering the self that lived through them, and that self is still with you, tucked away in the unconscious, waiting for you to acknowledge them. Not with criticism, but with kindness. It is a profound truth that the part of you who was hurt needs your love, not your condemnation. They do not need you to analyze them, to fix them, or to push them away. They need you to understand. Think of how you would treat a wounded child who comes to you, frightened, in pain, confused. Would you scold them for being hurt? Would you tell them they should have known better? No, you would kneel down, open your arms, and offer them the gentleness they so desperately need. This is the same posture you must take with your past self. Compassion is not an abstract virtue, it is a concrete healing force. The mistake many people make is believing that time alone will heal these inner wounds. But time does not heal what has been neglected. Only attention, only loving presence can do that. Until you offer compassion to your past self, the pain remains frozen in time, untouched, waiting. You may try to move forward, to build a life that ignores these wounds, but the hurt child within will find ways to remind you they are still there, through emotional reactions that seem disproportionate, through self-sabotage, through patterns that repeat without explanation. These are not flaws in your character. They are signals from the parts of you that have not yet been loved. Compassion for your past self is not an act of pity. It is an act of recognition. It is saying, I see you. I know why you felt that way. I understand why you acted as you did. You did not deserve the pain you received. You did the best you could with what you had. These simple acknowledgements have the power to release years of stored suffering. Because often, the wound is not just in what happened, but in how you learned to see yourself because of it. When you offer compassion, you are rewriting that inner narrative. You are telling the wounded self that they are worthy of love, even in their most broken state. This is not denial of responsibility. It is not avoiding growth. It is the foundation of true growth. For how can you expect to evolve if you are still at war with parts of yourself? True healing begins when you stop seeing your past self as a burden and start seeing them as a part of you that needs care. Integration happens not through force, but through acceptance. Every time you choose compassion over judgment, you weave back a piece of your fragmented self into the whole. The division within lessens. The inner war quiets. You begin to feel a peace that cannot come from outside validation. This process does not mean excusing the wrongs done to you. It does not erase the responsibility of those who caused you harm, but it does free you from perpetuating that harm within yourself. You are no longer obligated to carry forward the harshness of the past. You have the power to choose a different relationship with yourself, one rooted in kindness. There is a humility in this work. You must be willing to admit that the self who was hurt is not weak, not broken beyond repair, but simply human, vulnerable, sensitive, deserving of care. And when you offer that care, you transform not only the wound, but also the one who carries it. Compassion is the bridge between pain and healing. It softens the sharp edges of memory. It allows you to hold your suffering without being consumed by it. Over time, the memories that once brought only pain can evoke a quiet strength, a deep understanding of your own resilience. This is the paradox of healing. By embracing the parts of yourself you once rejected, you become whole. Not by erasing the past, but by meeting it with love. When you can look at your most wounded self and say with full sincerity, "I forgive you, I love you, I am here for you now," you have found the medicine that heals all wounds. There is a profound shift that happens when you no longer see your pain as a private prison, but as a bridge to something greater than yourself. When we are trapped in our suffering, the focus narrows. All we can see is our own wound, our own story, our own hurt. But healing truly begins to take root when we realize that our personal suffering is not as isolated as it feels. In fact, it connects us to the vast and shared human experience. Every person you meet carries hidden wounds. Some hide them behind smiles, some behind anger, others beneath a facade of strength. But beneath it all, we are united in our vulnerability. To recognize this is to take the first step beyond the confines of your own pain. It is to understand that your suffering, though deeply personal in its details, is also universal in its essence. This realization is not meant to diminish your pain, but to contextualize it. You are not alone in your struggle. And because of this, your healing is not only for you. When you heal a part of the collective. Every act of self-understanding, every moment of compassion you extend to yourself, ripples outward. It softens the harshness with which you might otherwise treat others. It allows you to meet their wounds with empathy rather than judgment. Pain, when left unexamined, often becomes a breeding ground for bitterness, for isolation, for a quiet resentment toward life itself. But pain that is transformed becomes a wellspring of wisdom. It becomes the soil from which compassion grows. You begin to see that your own struggles have given you the eyes to recognize the suffering in others, and the heart to respond to it. This is not about becoming a martyr for the pain of the world. It is about seeing your journey as part of a larger tapestry. The very process of facing your own wounds equips you with a depth of understanding that cannot be learned through books or theories. It is born from experience, from lived struggle, from the courage to confront what hurts. And here lies a paradox. The very wounds you once wished to erase become the source of your greatest capacity for connection. They teach you humility, patience, and a kind of tenderness that only those who have suffered can truly possess. This is the gift hidden within the pain. Not in the suffering itself, but in what you become by choosing to heal it consciously. But to access this gift, you must be willing to release the identity of the victim. You must step beyond the story of, "Why did this happen to me?" and into the deeper question of, "What can I do with this experience now?" This is not to deny the injustice or the real harm that was done. It is to reclaim your power from the grip of that past. It is to say, this pain does not define me, but it has shaped me. Now I choose how to carry it. When you begin to see your healing as an offering, not just to yourself, but to those around you, you tap into a source of meaning that transcends personal suffering. You become an example, a quiet testament to the fact that pain can be faced, transformed, and used as a force for connection rather than division. This is where true alchemy happens. Your personal wound becomes a portal to a deeper humanity. The empathy you develop is not theoretical, it is embodied. You do not pity others from a distance, you meet them where they are, because you have been there yourself, and in doing so, you create a space where healing is possible, not only for you, but for those who cross your path. Every time you choose to respond to your own wounds with awareness rather than reactivity, you lessen the unconscious spread of pain in the world. You break the cycle. You become a living example of what it means to transform suffering into wisdom. And so, your healing becomes a quiet revolution, not dramatic, not loud, but profoundly impactful. You heal yourself, and in doing so, you contribute to the healing of the collective. This is the deeper meaning behind your personal journey of pain. When you understand that your healing is not only for you, but for everyone you will ever meet, you will walk a little taller, breathe a little deeper, and carry your past not as a burden, but as a source of strength. There comes a time in every healing journey when you are faced with a simple but profound choice. Will you continue to define yourself by the pain of the past, or will you allow yourself to be changed by it, to grow into someone new? The memories remain, yes. The scars do not vanish. But healing does not mean forgetting. It means that the pain no longer holds the power to define who you are. It becomes part of your story, but not the whole story. Transformation is not an accident. It is an act of conscious will. You must decide that your past will not dictate your future. You must choose again and again to meet yourself differently, to stop clinging to old identities built from wounds, to stop rehearsing the same narratives of victimhood, betrayal, and loss. This choice is not made once and for all. It is made daily, sometimes moment by moment. For many, there is a hidden attachment to suffering, not because pain is desirable, but because it is familiar. Pain becomes a lens through which we have learned to see ourselves, to understand our place in the world. Letting go of that lens feels like stepping into the unknown. Who will you be without your story of pain? What will you talk about? How will you explain yourself? The ego fears this uncertainty. It clings to the known, even when the known is suffering. But beyond that fear lies something far greater: the possibility of becoming whole. To become whole does not mean to be perfect or untouched by life. It means to be integrated, to have made peace with your past, to carry your memories with dignity, not with shame. This wholeness is not given from outside. It is cultivated from within, through the continual practice of choosing presence over the past, freedom over old chains. The key is to shift from identifying with what happened to you to recognizing the deeper self that witnessed it all. Beneath every painful memory is a part of you that was never harmed, never diminished. This observing self, this inner witness, has always been there, quietly aware, untouched by the turmoil of events. When you begin to rest in this awareness, you create space between who you are and what you have endured. You no longer mistake your wounds for your identity. This inner space is where true healing takes root. From here, you can look at your past not with bitterness, but with understanding. You can see how the experiences, no matter how painful, have shaped your depth, your empathy, your strength. You can honor the journey without being imprisoned by it. This does not happen through force or denial, but through gentle, persistent presence. Each time you catch yourself falling back into old patterns of self-blame, shame, or resentment, you have the opportunity to pause and choose differently. You can remind yourself, that was then, this is now. I am not bound to that old story. With every conscious choice, you reinforce a new way of being. Over time, this becomes your new reality, not because the past is erased, but because you are no longer trapped in its emotional grip. Forgiveness plays a vital role here. Not just forgiveness of others, but of yourself. To forgive yourself is to release the false belief that you should have known better, done better, been stronger. It is to acknowledge your humanity, your limitations at the time, and to offer yourself the compassion you needed. Forgiveness does not excuse what happened. It frees you from carrying its weight any longer. The ultimate act of healing is to reclaim your authorship. To declare, not with anger, but with quiet certainty, I choose who I become. No longer reacting from old wounds, no longer defined by what was done to you, but responding from a deeper, wiser place. This is how you break the chain of the past. This is how you transform pain into power. And understand this: healing is not about reaching some final state of perfection where nothing can ever hurt you again. Life will continue to challenge you, but with each experience, you will meet it with more grace, more understanding, more resilience. You will no longer fear your own pain, because you have learned how to hold it, how to honor it, how to grow from it. When you reach this point, the most painful memories of your past no longer haunt you. They inform you. They become part of the rich tapestry of your being, threads of sorrow woven alongside threads of joy, strength, and wisdom. You are no longer fragmented. You are whole. And this wholeness, quietly but powerfully, is the true sign that you have healed. If you're ready to stop carrying the weight of your most painful memories, the time to act is now. Healing does not happen by waiting. It begins the moment you choose to meet yourself with compassion, the moment you decide to rewrite the story you've been telling yourself. Today, take a small but powerful step. Sit with your past self, not with judgment, but with kindness. Listen to their pain, understand their struggle, and gently remind them. You are safe now. You are loved. We are moving forward together. This is how you heal. This is how you become whole. Choose healing. Choose yourself. Start today.